maybe Mike, we'll start with you if you want to. It's just the way the phone's laid out. I think it's easy. We'll start with a question for you, Mike, and then we'll work our way around.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate it. Nice to talk to you. Will you give me a sense? When the report was that the Maryland folks are going to be able to come up with $150 million. It was more than the basic number that you were expecting from them, but not all the way up to the number the sort of full number that you need. How does that line up with so far what you've heard with DC, what you've heard with Virginia, and sort of how are you sort of planning this idea that it might be bad but not as bad as you laid out before?
Want me to start with it? Yeah, I'll start, and then I have former board chair Schmidberg and finance committee chair Letourneau with me. So I think it's I think we would say we appreciate Maryland coming out of the gate with their commitment and working through their budget process. We've had really, I think, growing positive conversations both in Virginia and DC. Sometimes it takes the numbers to be probably presented on the paper to really bring that final urgency to the conversation. But we've been working with everyone for, quite frankly, 6-8 months on this already. Lots of positive comments by elected officials across the region. I think the universal comment is failure is not an option, and we have to have a healthy metro system. So I think that's why most of us are cautiously optimistic. Of course, that we can't take that for granted. There is a process, and we need that certainty to be able to kind of do our workforce planning and service planning from there. But I think thematically, I think what Maryland did is kind of hopefully in line, and we hope we'll see something in the relatively near future, both from Virginia and DC, on similar or proportional numbers. And I don't know if any...
Yeah, Mike, I think it's fair to say it was great that Maryland came out of the box there. That proposal by the secretary will have to go through their legislative process, so that will happen, obviously. But we are encouraged. You heard our board member Lowe talk about the district. It seems encouraging there that they will soon have some announcements in terms of a dollar amount. And, I think we're fairly optimistic on the Virginia side that, we're a little more complicated on our side, obviously, because the jurisdictions are involved. It isn't just, state officials. I think given what we're hearing early on, I think we're pretty encouraged by that. And as the general manager said, failure is not an option, and people really understand the importance of value of Metro to this region, and they're not going to walk away from that investment.
Anything else?
No, just that I think there's a great level of awareness among the local governments in Virginia to step up, and we're having productive conversations with the legislature as we head into that session.
Okay. So Adam, you look like the only one on this side. We'll do you, and then we'll work this whole side after that.
So one of the things that you would do to close the budget gap is shut down the 10 lowest ridership stations. Not that the board presentation wasn't awesome, but I crunched some numbers in there, and it looks like Potomac Yard would be one of the lowest ridership stations. Is that accurate? Would that make the list?
Well, again, so staff proposal was to say, and I think Board Member Letourneau talked through this a lot, that the board now will take this and look at a different framework, or review this and may have a different framework. Our proposal was 10 lowest. And based on today's ridership, I believe Potomac is in that top 10. We said the methodology would be, I think, more or less, we try to go September through the end of March. We hope more federal workers will come back, and trying to adjust from some seasonality, right? But I do believe right now Potomac is in that top lowest 10. Whether that stays that way or not, and then quite frankly whether the board would implement to the budget recommendation, I think those are all variables to be worked through. But I think if you looked at the pure stats, I think that's the case.
And how does that jive with the announcement that came yesterday?
You would have to, I guess, ask others, quite frankly, about that announcement. We have nothing to do with that announcement yesterday. So.
What is your overall first impression of when you heard that this move was going to be made and so much emphasis is being put on the Potomac Yard Metro Station? Yeah, listen. I guess from my point of view as the general manager, I wasn't involved in the process. I wasn't involved in any discussions related to the process. If it all moves forward, we're going to have to obviously do tight collaboration and coordination with the larger development. The station itself, it serves 2 lines. Clearly would need some type of modification, I think, to handle
an event of that nature. I mean, it's kind of like one escalator, one stair kind of approach on each platform. It does have a large mezzanine, which kind of could be helpful for some crowd management, but people have to get up there. So, I mean, if it's a $2 billion investment, I would like to think that there will be some type of interaction with us to do that. But for us, listen, our job is to get people throughout the region. We serve from Loudon to Prince George's and from Montgomery to the end of Fairfax and DC in the middle. And we're going to get people safely and frequently to wherever events they need to get to and wherever they are in the region. And we just want to be a good partner and help facilitate development and get more, quite frankly, just get more people on transit. And that's what's good for our whole region. So,
not to monopolize it, but from your perspective, does it matter one way or the other, where a professional sports team would play? I mean, just from how the system operates.
Yeah, I don't know if it's right for the general manager of WMATA to opine on like where a particular place should be. I will say, I think our mission is to get people on transit, and the more transit accessible all large developments and large workforce places or employer bases or activity centers that are more transit based make for not only better for Metro from a ridership point of view, but they make for a better community, because if you look at all of our regional partners, they have air quality, climate goals, they have equity goals, they have economic development goals, and almost all of them, including COG stuff, all tie back to being close and tied into Metro. So, this across the street, across the field from Metro, our current gallery, where our arena's on top of Metro. We just want to be there and get people around, and we want to work with everyone to make things more transit oriented. So I don't know if you all have comments or think I hit that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess would you like to go?
Yeah, you've been talking about just the major impact to riders and to the area. Can you talk a little bit about that, especially it being so close, the layoffs to holidays?
Yeah, I would say the kind of two things. So, we'll do the latter first. I mean, it's horrible news to be anyone that's in charge of an organization to put a letter out to your staff any time of year that says, hey, you're working really hard, you're doing a good job. The people that rate us, our customers, are saying we're doing the best that we've ever had in history. And to tell that group of people that you may not have a job in July, a group of those people, is a hard thing to do. There's no getting around that. I think we have a mature workforce, though, a workforce that understands that we're a community and public service, and that we don't have our own revenue. We don't have control over our own funding, and this process has happened over and over here at Metro, and it's kind of frustrating, I think, to most people, because this thing does keep happening over and over. And I give a lot of credit to the chair and other board members that say, kind of, enough is enough. We need to solve this kind of kick the can down the road thing once and for all. We need predictable, dedicated funding, and I think the jurisdictions all want that too. I think everyone's tired of the WMATA budgetary drama that happens. So that's on the staff side, and I think any person with basic empathy would say that that's brutal. On the customer side, it's equally sad to tell customers that are coming back in better numbers, customers that are people going to school or healthcare or jobs or recreation, to say, hey, this system's working really well and I can count on this for the first time in a while, and it's affordable, a way to get around, and on and on and on, to say you might not have this as well. So I think we expect, I think all of us, to hear more and more from customers and others over the next 30, 45, 60 days, if not 90 days. And I think universally they're going to add to what Board Member Letourneau said. Everyone thinks this is unacceptable, and we all got to work together to try to make what was proposed today not be reality. So I don't know.
With 24-hour bus service set to roll out across some Metro bus lines in the coming days, does now still feel like the time to ramp up when there's a good chance that you may have to scale back in the coming months?
Yeah, so I would say, one, we hope that, again, the proposed budget is not what we end up with, but it is our fiduciary responsibility to put that out today and be honest where we are as an organization. While it doesn't, it's one of those kind of memes, make it make sense thing. It is hard to comprehend that you're adding 24-hour bus system and the same week you're saying that we might have these cuts, but they are funded differently, and those things have been in motion, right? So we've been in motion now with the district for better part of a year to add 24-hour bus system. It's quite frankly something that is needed here. There is no question that this region, and especially in the core, needs a 24-hour bus system. Baltimore has 24-hour bus up the road, and I don't think people would expect Baltimore to have something that even a DC, which is much bigger economically, doesn't have. So I think we're working through that. Our goal is to just deliver great service, and as I tell the team every day, if we deliver really good, safe, frequent, reliable service every day, more and more people use the service. These other financial, political equations usually can work themselves out. So that's what we're focused on, is executing 24-hour bus system as best as we can and trying to grow ridership and get people around this community, especially from an equity focus, to get people around where they really need it. A lot of people overnight are the people that first thing at a hotel in the morning, closing a bar at night, a lot of work that the average person in office doesn't see out there, that I think hopefully the pandemic showed that there's another part of our workforce that really matters to making the world really run.
When it comes to closing these gaps and avoiding having to make these layoff notices as soon as next month, what other money needs to come to the table? Is there a figure that you're looking for in order to avoid having to make those layoff notices?
Yeah, so in the deck itself, the numbers are there. I mean, we're happy to get a team member to show you the specific slide, but we have a deficit, we $750 million, but we do have a one-time savings, which really takes it to $650. We've done a bunch of administrative cuts. After that, it's either service cuts and fares increase, or increase the investment from the jurisdictions. So obviously that could be a sliding scale. The total number, really, if we get the largest number, we don't have service cuts, and we don't have layoffs, and we don't have fare increases. And any dollar less than that total number means a little bit of that relative to the number itself. So, again, I think both the board chair and the finance chair, we are hearing a lot of good conversation. Marilyn put down a good note last week, and now we got to turn our conversations into legal reality for us to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and despite these positive comments and things that are looking promising, the legislatures or the local governments on the Virginia side in this case, or the DC Council, has to approve this.
Okay.
So therein lies the challenge, and I think the general manager and Mr. Letourneau have emphasized this. The legislative calendars don't line up, and this process takes a while, and we've got to, we don't want to miss out on federal grants. There's a lot of moving pieces here, and so the timing of this is really important. Great that the Secretary came out in Maryland with that announcement, but yet it still has to be approved by the legislature.
Right. From a timing perspective, it's probably not avoidable to have to make those initial notifications, but we'll see. We've got several months to work through the legislative sessions to see if the money comes in to avoid it. And I think the message to the workforce is the board, management, the whole team at Metro is fighting to save those jobs and to get additional funding into the system.
Yeah, and and the last part of that is, our message is pretty clear with everyone. The more certainty that can be brought reduces anxiety for both the customers, someone that wants to invest in this region, someone that wants to move to this region, and all of our staff. We don't want staff members to say, maybe I'll go get another job, and then what do, right? We don't want people to retire early because they don't think they have a job. We fought really hard to get our workforce back in a place to deliver the great service we're delivering. So certainty for all of us, including, as the chair mentioned, our regional partners have their jurisdictional budgets. Everyone wants certainty, and I think that's why, regardless if this is a 1 or 2 year solution, we got to get to this long-term solution so we have the uncertainty blanket lifted once and for all from this kind of ongoing question.
Okay. I got a Paul and Matt, a Randy, and then a Paul and Matt.
Okay.
I got them in order in my head.
Okay.
I sensed on the board that people some members, not necessarily you, Matt, but would rather raise fares than cut service if it comes to that. I wanted the initial take of both of you on that.
Well, I think the challenge with raising fares is that you lose ridership, right? So it isn't a one-for-one. You got to look very carefully what that revenue impact is. And make sure it's worth it. I do think that for a variety of reasons, it's important for the region to see that Metro is sort of putting skin in the game with a fare increase. So I do think a level of fare increase is appropriate, and I would support that as part of the budget. The exact level, I think, is going to depend on what we need to, what the gap is. but it's tough to say right now. For myself, you heard me say I really want to try to avoid station closures as well, because I think that's kind of the worst thing we can do here. But everybody on the board is going to have different priorities, and that's why we're going to have a process to kind of work through the general manager's recommendations.
Yeah, I think our jurisdictional partners are also, I think, expressing to us that, look, Metro has not raised fares for a long time, and you saw that chart that was put up on the screen there. We're on the low to mid-range, depending on how you want to look at it. And I think, it's probably time that we do raise some fares. And I agree with Mr. Letourneau. Station closures are something that I think a lot of us are going to be looking at really closely and trying to avoid that as best as possible.
And my Randy question.
Okay.
My bus service one was already asked. I'll ask the closure of 2 red line stations coming up that people need to be ready for. Could you just go over again why now? I know some folks were concerned about people getting the holiday events, that sort of thing, and then even for part of it, Gallery Place will be closed. Why now, and why this versus summertime, that kind of thing?
Yeah, listen, we understand frustration for people for any type of closure, right? And the board chair, trust me, is someone that lives in Alexandria and had to go through two shutdowns, three shutdowns. I'm sorry, I forgot the third one. We shut down the yellow line for 8 months, right, to rebuild a tunnel last year. We shut down Greenbelt twice in the last 3 years to get that section from Greenbelt to Fort Totten done. And East and West Falls area and Vienna got a pretty hard shutdown this summer. The pain has been spread around. We have a system that is new compared to Boston, New York, and Philly, Chicago, but not new compared to like Phoenix and LA. It needs to be looked after and care and fed for the system. So we have a good example is we have a beam that is part of the structural tunnel, the tunnel structure at Farragut. That's a regional piece of construction. That will eventually fail if we don't go in there and fix that. So it's safe right at the moment, but we can't keep kicking that down the road. So we need to go in and we have to take care of that, or we won't have a red line. And so what we've said is, let's look what is the least impactful, because unlike some of the other lines, the core is the hardest part to shut down because everything kind of comes through there, right? And we know the red line with no other line, it's a big impact. So we said, what is the least impact? And it's 40% less riders during this 2-week upcoming period than any other time of the year. And so we just have to, every customer feels a little bit of pain from time to time. So I apologize that people have to go through that. We have a great bus shuttle set up. One thing that kind of bothers me sometimes with our conversations around rail shutdowns, we kind of forget that we have an amazing bus system, and 400,000 people will take the bus today. And sometimes, quite frankly, we have some people that kind of forget the bus or maybe look down upon the bus, and the bus is fantastic, and we will get you down the street. Quite frankly, you're not going that far on the bus shuttle. We're going to make sure it's well staffed. And really be out there with a lot of senior management, making sure this goes well. We've been working with the bids. We've been working with the art groups and theater groups very extensively. So we believe everything to be transparent, collaborative, but these shutdowns from time to time have to happen. If we can get in and get this done, hopefully that means the red line core doesn't have to be touched for another generation. And that's what we're really trying to get done.
And Tom, what we've learned over the years is there's no good time to shut down anything. I mean, bottom line, there's always a date, there's always a period of time, that there's always something.
Yeah.
And without the third rail, it just makes for difficult choices.
Yeah, the lack of a third track in the design really eliminated a lot of that resiliency, as the chair said. And, if we did it in January, school kids are impacted, and then we got weather. Right? Like we could have bad winter storms, and then that disrupts all the people that are doing the work, have to go out and shovel snow, and then we can't get out of the tunnel. In the summer, major tourist season that drives the economy, there is no good time, as the chair said. So our goal, get in, get out as fast as possible and get the work done. So, Mike, any other follow-up as we...
No, I'm good here. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
I got one final one, and this one is for Paul and Matt. This is a follow-up to an acting IG question I had last time, Mr. Mullendorf. Found out after the meeting that his law firm had a $2 million contract with Metro, and I asked if it was still active, and the folks didn't answer with Metro. So I just wanted to ask, do you know if that contract is still active, and if so, did that raise any conflict of interest concerns?
Not sure if it's still active. All I know is that Mr. Mullendorf is succumbed to, WMATA right now, and he is not interacting at all with any of his clients. They've all been given to other folks within the agency, and he is solely on board with with us for a period of time until we finish the recruitment.
But since he would presumably go back to his law firm afterwards, is there any conflict of interest concern there that he might be thinking in the back of his head, if it is active, I could be costing my law firm a $2 million contract if I ruffle too many feathers here?
I mean, it's a fairly sizable law firm, and to the best of my knowledge, he has never done any WMATA work. So that's all I can say. He is a former U.S. district attorney, or a U.S. attorney. He worked for the fraud division of DOJ. He comes to us with a lot of experience, and he's a consummate professional. And we've worked through any issues that we thought would potentially pose any kind of conflict at all, and that was all taken care of. So.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the board worked closely with the general counsel that serves the board on that appointment to make sure that there were no conflicts.
I guess my last question, can I get an answer at some point about whether that contract is still active? Because if it's not active, it's not as big a deal,
I don't know. I don't know if it's active. Because I had zero to do with the process, so I can look in to see if that's an active contract. And
they have numerous law firms.
We basically have an on-call for a variety of law firms, and that do support based on tasks. So I think
the issue here, Tom, is you're asking for somebody to come in for a relatively brief period of time while we go through a recruitment that has the credential to actually be an IG, so that the pool there is not huge. So it would make sense, quite frankly, to look to law firms that you have familiarity and relationships with that aren't complete strangers to WMATA. So I think I understand your question. I'm not sure, though, that there really would be a conflict. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else quickly, ladies?
Yeah,
Both good?
Get upstairs.
Okay, we good? Okay. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Happy holidays.